I'm Christina from Brainreach North. In our series called Indigenous Individuals in STEM, we talk to 5 individuals to get their unique perspectives on their careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. In this video, Megan from Brainreach North talked to Senator Lilian Dyck, who grew up in the prairies of Saskatchewan. Senator Dyck is a member of the Gordon First Nation and a first-generation Chinese Canadian. Senator Dyck is also a neuroscientist who completed her PhD at the University of Saskatchewan and worked as a full professor there for many years. She has won numerous awards for her achievements in science. She was appointed to the Senate in 2005 and became the first Indigenous woman and first Chinese Canadian to become a senator.
What legacy do you hope to leave in the Senate as chair of the Standing Senate Committee on Aboriginal Peoples?
Well, it's funny. It's just in the last year, as I'm getting close to retirement, people are now talking about legacy issues. When I first came to the Senate, of course, I didn't know what I was getting into because I knew nothing about the Senate. I've been here 14 and a half years now. And I've been very fortunate that this last June, I was able to have a key role in a bill that's called S3 to restore status to the descendants of Indian women who lost their status because of marriage. So, for example, in my own family, my mother lost her Indian status because she married a Chinese person. I don't even think my dad was Canadian yet. But because he wasn't status, she lost her status. And then, of course, her children didn't have status either. As the chair of the committee, I was able to play a big role in opening it up to essentially make the government, make the bill much more inclusive than they had originally wanted. And the other thing that I was able to do this last June was to propose amendments to the criminal code that will change the criminal code so that when there's abuse of women, and in particular Indigenous women, that the judges would have to take that into account during their sentencing. So there were 3 different amendments, and 2 of them are historic because they actually name women, vulnerable people, and Indigenous women. Typically in the criminal code, they never do that. They just use neutral language. They'll say gender, they'll say race, but they've never said woman, or they've never said Indigenous, even though we know that within the justice system there is prejudice against women and against Indigenous women in particular when it comes to violence. And in this particular instance, the amendments were focused mainly on intimate partner violence. So it would be violence that occurs in the home from your spouse, your boyfriend, your common law partner, or maybe your uncle, or even perhaps your father, grandfather, other family members. So those are historic changes. So I was really just ecstatic that it went through because I'd had my own private member's bill to do something similar, and it was rejected by the House of Commons. But this was another way of getting the same kind of results, and the timing was really good because the National Inquiry on the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women had just released the report on June the 3rd, and so they had recommended my bill. So it was good timing to get those amendments incorporated.
That's absolutely fantastic. Speaking to your experience in science as a woman, what were some of the challenges that you faced throughout your career as a woman in science?
Well, I didn't really face many barriers until later in life, and unfortunately I think that still may happen. We see a lot of undergraduate women now and a lot of graduate women in science. even now in things like physics and engineering, which are the fields that have been hardest to get women into. They're really welcoming women into the different areas of science. But as you progress up the career and you get to the full professor level at that kind of status, then the doors start to close, and then the barriers start to come up. And that's what I found with me. That once I became more independent, and for some reason, I guess was seen as a threat. That's what they tell me, but I could never understand it. Then the doors started to close, and that surprised me. And it was compounded by funding. When resources are tight, then people revert to old behaviors, and you tend to protect the people that you're most like. So in my career, the managers were all men, and so they tended to protect the men rather than myself. And I was the only woman who was a faculty member. And things were said to me like, well, you don't really need a job because you've got a husband. Those kinds of things. And I'm thinking, what can you say? How can you argue, because it's total nonsense. I have to keep Joe Blow on because he's the breadwinner of the family and he's got children. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm the breadwinner in my family. I earn more money than my husband, so, how is this fair? So it's just those old stereotypes came up. And so I was always having to make sure when we had our annual review, I would always argue, that, I wasn't the worst kid on the block. I was in the middle of the pack, indicate my publication record was middle of the pack or better. I had a lot of first author papers, which are at that time seen as the better papers. If you could have a paper where you were the sole author, I had quite a few of those. So anyway, I was always, at that point in time, always having to prove my abilities, whereas the others, my male colleagues, didn't have to do that to the same degree.
Who would you say your inspiration is in the STEM world?
I didn't really have anybody because there weren't a lot of women. There was no other Indigenous person that I knew of. So I really didn't have a role model. I just had a lot of determination and perseverance and just refused to give up when pressure got tight. I just thought, no, I'm going to stick it here. I'm staying with this. I'm never giving up.
What advice would you give to young students to help them succeed in a career in STEM?
I guess it goes back to that whole issue of support. We may not have a role model or a mentor. In fact, my mentor became my tour mentor. And I'm thinking, when things got really bad, I would just think about my parents, and my mom in particular. And I would say, things were really bad for her, but she made it out. So thinking of her gave me inspiration. So for young students, I think of someone in their own family, maybe that they admire, or, ask your family for support, or ask your friends. Find someone that can help you. And what I did later on in my career when things got tough is I joined a group of women on campus and became a feminist. So I got my support there. And then later on, I found a group of Indigenous people that supported my growth in that area. So it's finding those friends and family that tell you you can make it. Everybody's beliefs start to flounder, and especially, we were talking about during the middle of your thesis writing and thesis defense is so stressful, and sometimes you start to doubt in your own abilities, and it's good to have people that can tell you you can do it.
Certainly. I think that's the perfect piece of advice. So thank you so much again for speaking with me today. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule and for your consideration and thoughtful answers. I really appreciate it so much.
Well, you're most welcome. Take care.
Thank you, Senator Dyck, for sharing your insights with us. Check out the Brain Reach North blog for more interviews.